But obviously you're a racing man through and through, but not necessarily through and through. I understand you're also a big fan of other sports and travel around to follow it.
Certainly do, Simon. I love cricket. I love listen. This is what cricket does to me. My wife is one of those sun worshippers. I can't lay on the beach at all. But when we go in all over the world, whether it be the West Indies, South Africa, Australia, India, Sri Lanka, every test match in the world, test match places, I've been there and taken the wife. Australia 2 or 3 times. And I leave her behind in the hotel. She loves the sunbathing. I go off to cricket. And the best thing about the Australian is I go and don't sit in the Barmy Army. I sit in amongst the Australians so I can wind them up and give them some stick, like, you know what I mean? Plenty of times I get stick, but it's good fun sitting in amongst them, giving them some.
Never felt like taking a few bets off them?
Yeah, well, I'd love to take a few bets on them, but they're so stingy, the Australians, I don't know if they'd pay, like, you know what I mean?
Right, Barry, you've already mentioned that you've never really been a form student, so has punting ever played a part in your career?
No way. I couldn't have a bet. I couldn't have £100 on horse to save me life. I'd stand one for thousands, but I could not back horse. Backing horses is for mugs. I don't want to back horses, so it's not in me, like, you know what I mean? But sometimes I have a lean in a race, when I'm betting on a race, if certain faces... Listen, this is how strange it can be. I can be standing there laying 100, 200, 400, £1,000 bets to favourites, second favourites, and in comes a face and has a £70 or 20, the third in, and straight away that comes off and goes 3-1. That's £70 or 20 from this particular, whoever they may be, it's not always the same face, means more to me than all the £400 and £1,000 bets.
So sit on a similar line, would you ever listen to somebody come and whisper in your ear, this one's not off today? Would that affect you at all?
It depends. I suppose sometimes it affects me, but I get so many of them every day, like, you know what I mean? Every day people are trying to... Why do they want to buzz you up? Is it for an ego or something? They want to buzz you something up, or they think they're right, or they're trying to help you, but generally I don't take any notice of them. But as I said, there are certain people I respect, and so I do hold back on those horses.
It's interesting you mentioned people that you respect. That's one of my questions for later, but we'll ask that one now. Have there been any particular punters, bookmakers, whatever, that you've respected or, dare I say, disliked along the way, and for any particular reason?
I'm not sure, Simon, how you mean. Any ones I disliked. Any punter that wins I dislike, you know what I mean? But I like them if they lose the next race, so I don't know about dislike particularly. Listen, Simon, there's punters that won't bet with me because they dislike me. I understand that. They walk past me to take the same price with other bookmakers, and that's up to them entirely. But I have little wars with certain people all the time, but it's part of my profile.
Well, shall I rephrase? Any punters that if you saw them coming for, oh no, I hope he gives me the swerve, because they were a bit clever?
No punters who I particularly wanted to swerve. There's some punters around that I say to the clerk, are all our prices tight enough? Because I see a punter coming and I don't want to be over the odds and lay him over the odds unnecessarily if I happen to be above the price, you know what I mean, than anybody else.
You're talking about checking on prices. I mean, there was a massive thing that affected the betting ring when people started using Betfair. I mean, what were your opinions on it when it first sort of appeared on the racecourse?
Well, I was the one that took the biggest advantage in the early days, much to my mistake, like, you know what I mean, that Betfair was offering 5-1 and you could lay 4-1 on course, and it caused me to get involved with Betfair, but it's the biggest mistake I ever made in my life. The whole of the racing industry, the whole of it, all racing, has now been slaughtered by Betfair being around and Betfair markets.
So you definitely think that if it was, it could ever be turned around? Is it possible to turn it around now?
Well, I don't know if the government can make any changes to the rules. When they let all the betting go offshore and Betfair and the punters were getting away with taking these offshore prices, and so none of the liquidity was kept in this country, that's when it all went boss-side. Nowadays, Simon, of the on-course books, if there could be a check-up after each race, how much had been fielded and how much had been hedged to betting exchanges, you'd find that there's more turnover been hedged to betting exchanges than been kept by the bookmakers in the ring.
Right, Barry, you've already told us that you've been a bookmaker pretty much since you were a child. So what is it about the game that you love and being a bookmaker?
I just love the buzz. Honestly, it gives me a buzz every day. Even now, if I get up and I'm going racing, I go there with excitement that I'm likely to win money and play people and win or lose. But it's just an absolute buzz to me.
So what do you think makes a good bookmaker?
A good bookmaker is one that has a rapport with the punters, that takes decent bets, that gives them a good service, and pays with a smile, which is not one that Barry Dickens is known to do, pay with a smile, but still, you got to give the punters a good service.
Now, going back to Channel 4 days, you were probably, you were the best known racecourse bookmaker in the country for about, at least a decade. Did you ever have any drawbacks to that? People recognise you in the street or that sort of thing?
Listen, it's all part of the game. They come up and want selfies all the time. They come out and want to talk to me. Women want to kiss me. That's the worst thing, Simon. Women want to kiss me. But that's all part of that. I'll tell you a story. Maz and I was on holiday in Italy somewhere, Sorrento or something, and we got on a bus because we wanted to go somewhere. And suddenly, as I sat down, the bloke in the bus in Italy, in Sorrento, said, "Barry Bismarck." I said, "Oh, sorry, mate." Like, you know what I mean? So somebody in Italy, in Sorrento, recognised me.
We've talked about the negative impact Betfair's had on the betting ring. Do you think there's anything the bookmakers could do to try and turn things around and to encourage more people back in to bet with them nowadays?
Well, it's about into bet with us, because the way the bookmakers are betting, as everybody knows, the prices the bookmakers put up are slightly under the exchange prices. That's how it all works now, right across the board. There's no fluctuation of prices anymore. People complain about that most of all. They go down, we're all the same price. Once upon a time when it was chalk and duster, there were lots of different prices around and you go and swerve around and try and get the best price. But now they're all governed. In fact, prices change on some boards with the exchanges. It does it automatically. They just change the price on the board. So that can't help, but I don't know about bringing midweek crowds. It's so dear, isn't it? A day out racing is so dear. If you think they're charging the 20 quid to get in and two of you go and have a bit of lunch or something like that and the transport and whatever and have a few bets. You can do a bottle, 200 quid, can't you? Well, that's a dear day out.
Now, if a young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 20-year-old Barry Dennis came up to you now looking for advice, I want to start as a racecourse bookmaker, would you still give your young self the advice to do it in today's climate?
Definitely no. There's no way. Simon, the turnover isn't there anymore. Remember what I said, that originally when I was working in the back rows, I was turning over 2 million a year. That went up to 15 million a year when I was in the front rows. Now, I was turning over the equivalent of 60,000 pound a day midweek during the early days. When we got round to Royal Ascots or Cheltenham's and that, my turnover was £200,000 on the day. Nowadays, I turn over 10 grand a day. That's in good days. The game's gone.
Okay, Barry, well, this is probably going to seem like a bit of a daft question after what you've just said, but is there a future for on-course bookmaking in your opinion?
Yes, there is those that want to treat it as a job where they earn average type monies, i.e., as a bookmaker, I won't name him, but he said to me, "Barry, I go out with my wife, and so they've got no expenses." Okay, that seems common nowadays, isn't it, Simon? People use their family. He said, "I go out 6 days a week and earn £100 a day. That's £600 a week. Now, do you want to go and sweep roads or dig ditches for £600 a week? What a wonderful life, going to work and earning £600 a week. That is the future if that's what you want to do."
So I would imagine you would agree, you had the last of the good days of the betting ring. Have you sort of lived the dream?
Oh, I'd lived the dream then. It was partying from all day, every day. Stop on the way home and have 10 bottles of champagne, and it was just living the dream. All those periods, I had a few years. I say when I was, you can imagine, earning big bananas when I was turning over 15 million a year, and all the staff enjoyed it. Everybody, big holidays. I used to fly from track to track in helicopters and all the time, just for the fact of getting to another track where I could turn money over.
So is there, as a footnote then, is there anything that you've done in your career that you would have changed?
Nothing at all. Never ever would I change anything. I do things on the spur of the moment, but I accept them and live with it, and it's either right or wrong. I make it right, and that's the way I want it to be.